Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right, it is Big Game Monday. Welcome to it all, man. Sidelines, got a lot to talk about. Coach Matt Dean will join us here in just a few minutes. We'll be talking about the big one tonight, San Diego State and UConn. Interesting stuff Doug Dean sent this morning. We're going to be talking about, looking forward to reading this, about the matchup, some of the things that Danny Hurley has been saying. And you know, there's so many ways you can look at this matchup, but experience matters. San Diego State got all the way to this game. I took out Florida Atlantic this past Saturday. You know, a lot of people are complaining. Well, the matchup, you have UConn. They're a big time program, but San Diego State, Miami, Florida Atlantic, not household names and not frequent visitors to the Final Four. Isn't that what the tournament's all about? The best teams, not the biggest names. I mean, think about that. So a lot of the people on TV, they're looking at it, and I understand ratings are important. You got to have it. You got to have viewers, listeners, sponsors, and all. But these are the best teams they're playing the best basketball through March and early April. In San Diego State and UConn, you're going to have a national champion. It's going to be one of those two. Could be a big-time program or could be a program that's never been to the Final Four. And maybe it makes people go crazy, but I'll tell you what it really did is it busted a lot of brackets. I had Miami in my Final Four, but also had Kansas State and Kansas and Alabama. I mean, Kansas went out as the number 1 seed in the second round. Alabama went out in the third game to San Diego State. Kansas State, they lost. I mean, there's just, look, the tournament, you can say, is this the best? Are these the best teams in the country? Well, they're the best teams right now. And that's all that matters. And you have 363 teams that are eligible to qualify for the NCAA tournament in March. I mean, that right there you go. So these are the best teams. Hey, Sidelines every Monday through 6 days a week. We put out about 25 or more shows a month, 50 hours plus a month of content. So we're all college football, basketball, baseball, recruiting. That's what we do. That's who we and we have a great lineup today. Again, Coach Matt Dean checks in from Memphis over at Rhodes College. Tommy Kane checks in from Atlanta and getting his take on this, man. He knows his college basketball. Hour number 2, Franz Beard, GatorBaitMedia.com. He's been making a lot of good calls on what's happening. Stuff's coming true. And Wess Moore will check in from the capital city, Little Rock. ESPN 103.7 The Buzz will check in with us in the final segment of today's show. Over the weekend, we all watched a lot of basketball. Florida Atlantic, San Diego State, 72-71. That was a really good game, close game. But Florida Atlantic, nothing to be ashamed of. I think that program plays in like a 3,000-seat arena. It's not a really big arena. They'll probably be asking to build a bigger one after making it to the Final Four. As far as UConn and the Big East, those are really – UConn's had some success in football, but it's a basketball league. Okay, 32 conferences in America. Now the dust is about to completely settle after tonight's game. You got to say Big East, Big 12, SEC. Those are your best basketball leagues in the country. College football, I'd say the SEC is the best league in America. But if you judge it by what happens in bowl games, you can't really tell much. It's the regular season. The SEC schools all play each other. They beat each other up pretty bad. That's for sure. But I think that the basketball part of it San Diego State's roster, when you look at the number of older players that they have on that roster, you got to look at the experience level. And I'm looking at some stuff that was sent to me by Frank and Doug this morning. And it's pretty interesting. I'm going to read it to you. I want to get this right. Dan Hurley, 2 Dan Hurley quotes for this morning. Quoting Dan Hurley, "This isn't that hard. I have 3 NBA players, and we put the right pieces around them. Their starting 5 is older than 5 NBA teams." That's Danny Hurley on San Diego State. So can San Diego State disrupt and make this a down-to-the-wire game? Maybe. UConn lost 5 games in January. They went on a losing streak. Only a 7.5-point favorite tonight. But the Aztecs will have to ugly it up. Super physical and hope the refs let them play. That is what you hope happens in these championship games. No pithy foul calls. You saw that yesterday in the women's national championship game, LSU versus Iowa. They were getting a lot of fouls on key players for LSU early. Ultimately, it really didn't really matter. Kim Mulkey got her 4th national championship. She got this one in year 2 at LSU. That is the first ever national championship for men's or women's basketball in LSU history. Of course, in the SEC, other than Florida, Arkansas, and Kentucky, of the current members, no team has won a men's national championship. Of course, South Carolina and Tennessee. Pat Summitt won 8 national titles at Tennessee. I think Dawn Staley's got 2 at South Carolina. But Danny Hurley, the Hurley name, the bloodlines, the pedigree, like Matt Dean, Coach Matt Dean. Matt, by the way, is it Tracy Clark? I like what Kim Mulkey said to her after the game. You know, you're a generational player. Talking about Clark, she had over 180 points in that game. I mean, this girl is just incredible basketball player. But talking about that real quick, those are Kim Mulkey, just a hell of a coach. And what she did was he took LSU. I think they had 1 or 2 players coming back. She had to go into the portal. She had 1 or 2 players. She had to really start over and did a hell of a job. Have you seen a coaching job like that in recent history?
You know, she was tremendous, Rob. And it doesn't shock you, right? She was 3-0 as a national championship coach at Baylor. Yeah. If anything is probably shocking, it's how quickly she did it at LSU. I kind of felt like she was going to eventually get it done. That's her pedigree. You know, she did it as a player, as an assistant coach, as a head coach, and now at 2 different universities.
Yeah.
And it's Caitlin Clark, Rob, and I just want to address something this morning. I was a little taken aback after the game. You know, everyone was talking about some of the stuff like this with the players and the, I have no problem with players and talking back and forth in the game, but this narrative after the game that Iowa disrespected LSU because of the way they guarded South Carolina and was in a triangle and 2 and box and 1 and said, shoot the ball. Let me tell you something, Rob. Iowa did LSU a favor because if they don't beat South Carolina and they played a phenomenal game, a once-in-a-tournament game, once in a lifetime, South Carolina was the clear 1 seed in this tournament. If they don't do that, South Carolina wins the national championship, Rob. Yeah. LSU played them, 88-64 in the regular season? They were not going to beat South Carolina. So this – I tell you what, it got a little ugly on Twitter last night. I have nothing but respect and admiration for LSU.
Yeah.
But when they're coming on ESPN after the game saying Iowa disrespected them because of the way they guarded their SEC foe, that's a clown show statement, Rob. It really is. So I normally I'm not like this.
Yeah.
I was a little fired up last night. because all I want to do is give credit and attention to LSU, and all they want to do is throw disrespect towards Iowa. So I'm not really a big fan of how they handled it. Let me tell you another thing. I don't know if you noticed this, but, Iowa sat there waiting for them to shake their hands.
Yeah, I did. And they were doing this crap with the ring.
Yeah, they don't even go over the shake hand line.
That was horrible.
You know what? Are we getting to the point where we just eliminate the shake hand line? Because if you don't want to do it and say, hey, great game afterwards to your opponent, then let's not even pretend to have sportsmanship.
Yeah.
So that was my take. I thought LSU first half, I think it was Jasmine Carson, who I think is a Memphis native, lights out, 21 points. She was the difference in the game because Iowa said, we're going to make someone beat us other than your better players, and she did.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's really petty to say that they were disrespected. I mean, what is it? If you have to talk about respect and getting respect, you don't respect. I don't know. That's really pithy. But I just thought after the game, I mean, why would LSU think that is the dumbest thing that they disrespected us because of the way they guarded South Carolina? I mean, that's ridiculous. You just won the national championship. You ought to be doing backflips, celebrating. But what I couldn't stand was the holding up the hands with the ring. And then while they were doing the post-game celebration at the podium, they were asking where their rings were. And they said, well, we don't have them yet. I mean, this was you're talking about a lack of sportsmanship. Look, LSU ought to be excited. I am. It's an SEC national championship, but God, to act, I mean, they should not. I agree with you. I mean, it's not something to lose sleep over, but the handshake line, sportsmanship, that stuff. If you can't handle success, God, I can't imagine what it would have been like if they hadn't won. I mean, but why are you saying someone disrespected you when you just won the national championship? Who cares how they guarded South Carolina? I mean, as a LSU player, you just won the national championship. Shut up, show class, shake hands, and move on. My God, that's all about clickbait and trying to get attention for yourself in the me, narcissistic generation, Coach. That's all that is.
Well, and I'm not one of these people that are trying to say officiating had anything to do with it. LSU kicked Iowa's butt.
Yeah,
they did. And honestly, the only problem I had with the game, Rob, was I thought that technical foul they called on Caitlin Clark that gave her her fourth personal foul was not warranted. But honestly, LSU said, hey, we're not going to be afraid to shoot the three. We got better shooters from the perimeter. If you want to play a similar plan, we're going to make you pay. And they did. It was a great, great strategy. Kim Mulkey's team attacked the zone. They went at him. Then when Iowa backed off, they made shots. They got Iowa in foul trouble, especially their big kid inside, Monica Izano. So I just had nothing but credit. And at the end of the game, for that to happen, I was like, you know what, man, whatever.
Wait a minute. This is a comment made by Shoney down in Valdosta. He said it was South Carolina that felt disrespected by Iowa.
No. Listen to the regards after the game.
See, that's what I'm saying. I'm trying to figure this out because and I'm getting a lot of comments from people saying the way LSU's players acted in the post game, holding up the ring finger and doing that stuff made me turn the TV off and just made me sick. If that's what a national title does to your program, that made you sick. But I'm getting a lot of comments from people. Let's just say this: the decorum prohibits me saying things. I mean, They're so disgusted because they're like, you win a national championship and you're sitting there doing and I saw the LSU players doing it in the faces of the Iowa players. I mean, that is so classless and just, it's just awful. What you do is you shake hands with them or you give them a hug and say, man, hell of a game. Golly, man, we got you today. But you all are one hell of a team. And I'm honored. You show class the way we were brought up. You don't stick your hand in the face of, Caitlin Clark or whoever. I mean, that just made me sick. And let's see if anybody on ESPN or any of these talking heads have the balls to stand up and call them out for acting. Kim Mulkey, I'm a fan of hers, but that starts with the coach, Matt. You know, you've been a head coach. I've never seen after a team won a national championship, people act like that. What was that all about? That I'm missing something here, but you know what, LSU, I'm happy for you, and I'm damn proud of Iowa too. This is about a basketball game, not sticking your hand. That's uncalled for.
Listen, I'll be the first to admit, as an Iowa fan, I wanted them to win the game, right? And I knew early in the game, heck, I knew at halftime, it's 59-42. I'm like, tall task, LSU is making shots. They are the better team on the floor. And I think a lot of people saw that last night. But as a fan of the sport, as someone I've been involved as a head coach and assistant coach, Rob, nearly 600 college basketball games. And every time I got my butt kicked, or every time we won, we went down there and we congratulated the opponent. Yeah. And I just was, it starts from the head coach. Yeah. There's an old saying, you got to know how to take a loss, but you also need to know how to win too.
Yeah.
And I will tell you this, for me, for Iowa to beat South Carolina was amazing accomplishment. And Iowa laid out their cards. They played a really gimmicky zone defense. And they forced South Carolina to shoot the ball. And still that game was 77-73. That's how good South Carolina was. They were miserable from three, and they had
hold those thoughts, because the people saying Dawn Staley felt disrespected. I mean, get over yourself. You either win or you lose. We're going to talk about it right after this.
Kitchens and bathrooms make a home, and the design teams at Kitchens Unlimited know how to make kitchens and baths. They know it all because they have seen it all. Kitchens Unlimited has been designing and remodeling the Mid-South's kitchens and baths for over 50 years. Check out their showroom at 3550 Summer Avenue or visit them on the web at kitchensunlimited.net.
If you have a crash, dent or ding, go to G.E. Patterson and BBG for Tom Martin's Body Shop.
Come on down to Hewlett & Dunn Boot and Clothing Company, located on Historical Square in Collierville, Tennessee. Hewlett & Dunn is the second largest Filson dealer in the Southeast, stocked with Southern brands you know and trust. And a new inventory arriving all the time. Do yourself or someone you know and love a favor and visit this store. Open Monday through Saturday, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
As an agricultural producer, no matter where you farm, minimum tillage is a primary concern each and every season. At House Industries in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, we manufacture equipment to help you maximize efficiency when planting and watering a crop. Pieces like the pulverizer, bedder roller, 3-bar do-all, and bed conditioner assist you in optimizing seedbed preparation and ultimately your bottom line. Visit HouseIndustriesInc.com to locate the dealer nearest you.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
Matt, you were making some great points, and I didn't see all the post-game press conference. I had a bunch going on, but I mean, Dawn Staley, you got 2 national championships. Kim Mulkey, you got 4. Trying to make some kind of like political statement about you're disrespecting me because of the way you guard you. Get over yourself. I mean, the other team guards you or does whatever they do. I mean, yeah, bring him. Tommy Kane's going to come in here with us as well. But when you win, hey Tommy, when you win a national championship, which LSU did to beat Iowa yesterday, they need to be show class, be excited. and these coaches all screaming at journalists and all. I mean, you had great numbers, the largest crowd ever for the Final Four. The TV numbers and all are good. And now you're going to have your players. I mean, that stuff of putting the hand up in the face of the Iowa players. We are taught from when we're old enough to put on socks to show sportsmanship and class. And if you're going to act like a jackass after you win a national championship, my wife is right. Karma is a, you know what, and you watch, show class. And there's an underlying story here. When you win a national championship, you don't need to say anything, but you don't. I mean, I don't know. Just, it's like someone that makes a lot of money going over to their neighbor's house and showing them their W-2 or their 1099. I mean, God, act like you've been there. Yeah. But jump back in here, Matt, because I know Tommy's going to join us here as well in this, basketball melee. But I mean, Matt, if you had a player sticking their finger, I wouldn't like that as a coach, would you?
No, and Tommy, kind of the narrative before you got on was I was very, and I'm still very congratulatory to LSU. They played lights out, fantastic season. But after the game on the ESPN post game, I know one of the LSU players was talking about how Iowa disrespected them, and somewhat referenced almost the way Iowa was playing defense, right? But my take, Tommy, was Iowa did them a favor by beating South Carolina, because they didn't want to play South Carolina in the championship game, because South Carolina beat them 88-64 in the regular season. Right. And I think Iowa had that one in a lifetime game in the semis. And I kind of felt as a fan, I said, you're going to have a hard time replicating that back-to-back against two SEC opponents. And then after the game, some of the comments, I was just, I was a little put off and shut off the TV.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, emotions can get the best of you in situations like that, especially, I mean, we weren't, I'm not justifying it in any way, shape, or form, but we don't know what was being said down on the court with the talk was back and forth. We don't know what was going on between coaches at the end when they shook hands or whatever. You just don't know what was actually going on. But at the same time, yes, I mean, you would hope your athletes and your program would take the high road and just be more classy and say, look, my favorite line in all sports all the time when people used to talk trash is I would just, we were winning, I would just say, look at the scoreboard.
That's right.
Look at the scoreboard. I mean, you can say whatever you want to me, but at the end of the day, I'm going home with the victory, and they went home with the national championship. And it should have been about them and their fortitude to get through the tournament and to do what they did, and about their work all season long, and about the program and about the support of their fans or whatever. That's what they should have been always talking about, not the other opponent, not giving them any time, publicity by even just talking trash to them. It's still just giving them, anyway, it's a maturity thing too. You got to just, it's something that I think has to come from the coaches at some point in time, but it's also just the young ladies or whomever was involved with the whole situation just needed to be, that should have been their the way they were brought up and everything else. It should have been more like, look, forget that, you won, celebrate,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Dawn Staley's got 2 national championships. She's a great coach. Golly, do your talking on the court and just be glad for what you did. But anyway, LSU, that's a big deal, man. Kim Mulkey, 4 national championships, and
huge win.
That's a great accomplishment. And the Final Four, both of y'all would have to agree. Now, was it Matt or no? It was Jake Wimberly on the show at the end of last week down in Jackson, Mississippi. He was telling us that the women's Final Four tickets were going for higher prices than the men's Final Four. Isn't that hard to believe?
Yeah, I think for me, that's hard to believe. But, look, let's face it. I saw a stat this morning out of 20-some million brackets in the ESPN bracket thing, 0.004%, 7,200 picked San Diego State and UConn in the finals. So, it's just, and that's, I'm sure of those 7,200 or whatever people, they were all 7,200 alumni from San Diego State. I'm sure a lot of people had Connecticut in there, but nobody had San Diego State unless you graduated from there and walked away with a diploma. But that's what makes the sport so great. But is it bad? Is it like at the end of the day, like ticket sales and all that stuff is, I mean, there's not a big following for San Diego State basketball around the country. I mean, like last year when there's all the blue bloods in there, that was the hottest ticket you could get, but because the average fan would want to go see Chapel Hill play and want to go see Kansas play and whatever. But the average fan's not going to really be too excited about going to see San Diego State. This is my opinion. So
yeah, and we talked about it that Doug Dean sent some information to me this morning from Birmingham that San Diego State, guys, is older than 5 NBA teams. I mean, that's the virus.
Is he serious? Like the average age is older than 5 NBA teams?
Yeah, I'm going to read here exactly what our man Doug Dean said, but it'll blow your mind because you're thinking to yourself, going, okay, here it is right here, and I'll get to it. And it's they're older than 5 NBA teams, and that's just that's just hard to believe that. Let me get this here for you and show it to you.
You know what? I wouldn't be surprised because of the extra year everybody got for COVID year and all that stuff. So you add that in, and then the transfer portal and all the craziness. Now you can get the 6-year eligibility if you're still in school. I mean, there's just
yeah. Oh, here's two. This is from Doug Dean. 2 Danny Hurley quotes. Danny Hurley, quote, "This isn't that hard. I have 3 NBA players, and we put the right pieces around them. Their starting 5, San Diego State, is older than 5 NBA teams." He also said, so San Diego State, can they disrupt and make this a down-to-the-wire game? Maybe UConn lost 5 games in a row, during the regular season.
Right.
They didn't lose any games outside of the Big East. They're only a 7.5-point favorite. So Aztecs will have to ugly it up, play super physical, and hope the refs let them play. But I get it for fans, but all of us as basketball and sports junkies, I love the fact that it was a tournament with 363 teams at the beginning of the year that could qualify. 68 made it, and these are the teams that are playing the best basketball right now. Are they the best teams in the country? Hell, man, you can always debate that. But the team that scores the most points will be the national champion.
That's right. And and you got to give San Diego State all the credit in the world. They've done what they had to do. They got put in the dance. They fought their way through. They were a 5 seed, and they're in the national championship game. If you look at who they beat though through the ranks of it all, I mean, obviously the Alabama win was the big stepping stone for them. And then they had, a pretty tough team in Creighton. Creighton was a good team. But other than that, College of Charleston, Furman, and Florida Atlantic, who was kind of just riding the wave, they knew that was going to come crashing down eventually. They still gave them a good game and obviously only won by 1 point. But then you look at who UConn's beat, and, Arkansas, Gonzaga, and Miami, 3 really good teams, and they don't just beat them. They're whipping them. Like, there's not a game that's close. There's not I don't think they've had a game within, almost 15 points in any one of the games that they've played is even close. So on paper and everything else, you think the Huskies are just going to run away with it, but that's why we play the game. And, San Diego State, like you said, Rob, they come out with a little physical attitude and get after it with them. And 5 athletes on the court versus 5 athletes, anything's possible. We've always said that, and so all somebody's got to do with San Diego State is get wicked hot, like the girl from Iowa did the other night, and knock off South Carolina. And who knows? And, anything can happen. So.
Yeah. Matt, like what Tommy's saying, he's right. UConn, they're a team that in the beginning of the season was way up there, had that 5-game losing streak. People kind of forgot about them. But a lot of things happened for San Diego State to get here. A lot of things happened for every team to get to the national championship game. How do you attack if you're San Diego State? Just go. They look like you and John Hartwell both said it. They looked like a football team in basketball uniforms. It's carried them this far. I wouldn't change anything, would you?
No, and I'll go back, and Tommy knows this well because he's a Wolfpack guy. But no one thought NC State was going to beat Houston back in the 80s. I mean, that was Phi Slamma Jamma. I'm sure the guys in the Wolfpack locker room thought they were going to win the game. I'm pretty sure Valvano thought they could win the game. But tonight, one of the neat stories tonight, and Tommy, you're a production guy, you got to love this, is Dan Dutcher was an assistant that helped recruit the Fab Five to Michigan under Steve Fisher. It's a pretty cool story. 30 years later, when he was an assistant in the title game when Michigan lost to North Carolina, the infamous timeout game, Chris Webber late in the game. Brian Dutcher, sure that's the name. I think it's Brian, but he was an assistant coach. And 30 years later, he takes over a program from his mentor, Steve Fisher. And a lot of those guys have been texting him, reaching out, congratulating him. And, if you can beat Alabama, you can beat UConn. However, the big difference is, I think, Tommy alluded to it, UConn's on a mission right now. They're winning games by double digits. They really haven't had a game where it's been in the last 2 minutes where it's been in doubt. People were saying before they had their losing streak this year that they were a national championship contender. I don't know, Tommy, what happened in those 5 games or whatever, but they've righted the ship, and they have bigs that can really dominate a game inside. They have perimeter play. They defend. As much as we want to talk about their offense, I thought they guarded the heck out of Miami last game, and no one had done that so far in the tournament.
Yeah. But that's the thing about UConn too, is like they're so balanced because they got so many weapons on the offensive side of the ball, but they get after you on defense. I mean, I don't think anybody shot over 40% against them all tournament, and they just, that's the recipe you need to win at this level. You need to be able to fill it up on the offensive side and just stop people on the defensive side. So, but I mean, I'm looking forward to seeing what happens. I just, as a fan, I want to see it obviously come down to the wire. I want to see a close game. I don't really care at this point who really wins. But I would love to see a good, well-played game. I don't want to be turning the game off at halftime because UConn's up by 22 and San Diego State's got half their team in foul trouble, that kind of thing. You want to see good basketball at this point in time. So,
yeah.
Rob, to answer your question specifically, though, I would watch the first half of the Rick Pitino Iona team that actually led UConn first game in the tournament. It was 41-39. I would try to see if there was any tendencies they did defensively to slow them down. I would. Because, quite frankly, no one else has been even close in 20 minutes with UConn.
And I guarantee you those coaches have done nothing but do exactly that kind of stuff.
I agree.
They've looked at every game tape that UConn lost during that 5-game losing streak, and they're trying to figure out that one thing that those teams did, whether they switched high on the screens or they switched one under them or what they did that kind of set UConn off. That's what you do as coaches. You dig into that film and you look for the little tendencies that you see game after game where they lost or had struggled with, and you're like, okay, that's how we got to beat them. And that's what Rob, we've talked about in the past. That's what, when I had the chance to be around Valvano for a year, that's what was so awesome about him, is his tactical approach to the game and coming up with these little nuances that he knew would either disrupt the other team's offense or just get them off on their heels the whole time. And it was beautiful to watch and see it executed. And I think that's what coaches are looking for, is just that little something they can say that, hey, if we're really physical, like with this big man, and foul him the first couple of times he gets the ball, he gets rattled, he doesn't have a good game. So let's throw a guy in there, let's hack him a little bit, get him rattled and see what happens. That's the strategy that most people don't really see when they watch a basketball game, but that's the stuff that I love watching.
Well, watching the women's game, the way Iowa would Caitlin Clark would transition, just throw those long passes. Now, obviously, I mean, the women's game, I think y'all both would agree, is much more of a tactical game. It's a strategy. It's a pure form of the game. You said that, both of y'all. But God, watching Iowa throw those passes in the men's game, those windows close a lot quicker. It's harder to do that, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah,
it is.
Yeah. I mean, the thing we preached every day in practice is transition defense. No one gets a layup on us, right? So you are just talking about getting back after every miss. Someone's assigned to get back in transition. And it's funny, Tom, because when I was a young manager, Tom Abatamarco, Valvano's assistant, got the job at Drake. So one of the things that I took from him, he was not afraid, kind of like Valvano was, at the triangle to you, the box and one you, whatever. And then I took that when I became a head coach, and I had some success with the triangle too as well. And there's sometimes you just watch the tape and you're like, Rob, I can't beat this team. We can't beat this team straight up. We cannot. We can't guard them. So what do? A lot of times for me, you have to limit possessions, which means you're going to probably take the shot clock down to get shots under 10 seconds. You're going to get back in transition to eliminate layups and easy offense, and you're going to throw changing defenses. You're going to switch defenses against people. And then really with San Diego State, what's unique is They're so physical. They want to keep this game in the 60s or high 50s. I'm not sure they can. I think UConn is like Tommy said, they're so balanced. They can beat you so many ways. The other night, Miami made a run, and it was 53-45. Yeah. And the next thing I know, it's like 62-47. It's just like blinked, and they go right back at you. I just think UConn is too much tonight. I don't even think it's going to be close.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw the typical, comes out, San Diego State's on fire, kind of gets it going right away, and everybody's like, oh, it's going to be a game. But I mean, I'm a statistics guy and everything else, and they just all kind of said it's going to lead to UConn. But that's why we watch the game. Like, there's no, if you want to just give it to UConn right now, just you got to play the game, got to play, and it'd be good for basketball, like I said, for it to be a close game. I saw today, UConn wins. This will be their 5th national championship, and joining the ranks of Indiana and Duke up there with the 5 of them. But pretty impressive because UConn a couple years ago they were down in the bottoms. They were struggling for a while there.
I think they won the first one under Jim Calhoun in '99, and he won 3. Kevin Ollie won 1. This would be 5. I'm picking UConn to win tonight, but I didn't have them in my Final Four. Again, let's review this. Tommy and first, Tommy, go first. What was your Final Four, and then Matt? Okay, let's do this. First, let's take a break. We're going to take a break for sponsors. Great sponsors like Hewlett and Dunn Boot and Clothing Company on the historic square in Collierville, Tennessee, and Tom Martin's Body Shop, G. Patterson and B.B. King. We'll be right back with confession time from Father Rob with Tommy and Matt, our Final Fours after this.
Hi, I'm Eleanor Maynard, a 4th-generation residential broker with Hobbs & Realtors. Inventory is still a record low in Memphis, and the demand for more supply is continuing to spread across the Mid-South. Rates are starting to stabilize, which means the number of buyers is picking up daily. If you are interested in taking advantage of today's market, please give me, Eleanor Maynard, your Sidelines Live residential specialist, a call today, and let's discuss your needs. 901-761-1622 or directly on my mobile, 901-219-1905. That's 219-1905.
All right, Tommy, we'll go first. Your Final Four, who'd you have?
Which bracket?
In your bracket. The one that says Kane Thomas.
Look, every time the Wolfpack get into the tournament, I always do one bracket where they win the national championship. I just got to, right? I mean,
I do too.
Because, you gotta be able to, like, if the Wolfpack went on a run like San Diego State did right now, I'd be able to talk so much crap to all my friends and everybody and that I picked them in the pool, right? So, when I went through the pools, I think consistently I had Kansas in there for sure, in the Final Four. I had Texas. I thought Texas was playing well, and I thought they were going to make it to the top of that bracket. On the other side, I had I think I had a little bit of a wild card there with Kansas State getting in there, and then I think I had Arizona. So I had a 2 or 3 and 2 and a 1 in there. So I didn't really go on a limb too much on most of my brackets except for my one with NC State. But I can tell you that I had San Diego State losing to Arizona in the 8, in the final, in the 8. So I had them going along pretty well. So that was a pretty good pick for me on that side. And then I had UConn losing to to Gonzaga in the final 8. So I had them pretty far along, but that's about it.
Tommy, you're your basketball, and I did 3 brackets. I did 2, and my wife and the dog did 1. So Matt, you go ahead now, and I'm going to show you what these. I can't believe what I just found. I'd gotten so discouraged. I hit them, and I quit looking at them. But Matt, go ahead. Come clean.
Well, my Sweet 16 was all perfect. And then in terms of the teams that were in the Final Four, but I was a little bit like Tommy. I actually had UCLA beating Gonzaga and then beating UConn. So I was wrong there. I liked Houston all year. And, Texas, Miami just took it to them. Miami took it to Texas in the second half. So I had Houston. I was riding the chalk with Alabama. And I'm a Rick Barnes fan, so I put Tennessee in there. But I knew it was a challenge without Sakai. And that really showed. When they played the FAU in the Sweet 16, it showed their weaknesses, especially with dribble guard penetration without having Sakai on the floor. But Tommy, credit to have San Diego State in your Elite Eight, because honestly, they've had a great year. It's not like they've surprised anyone. They won 30-plus games. They've had a tremendous year. And you know what? In fairness, I know I've said UConn's going to win tonight, but in fairness, it wouldn't shock me either if we look up and with 5 minutes to go, this is a game. It would not shock me.
Yeah, and I hope you're right, Matt. I do. Yeah.
Well, I told you my first Final Four, the one I do in my name and Rob, was unfortunately it really hit it hard. It was Alabama, Kansas State, Kansas, and Miami. Then I did one, Delta, Audrey's dog, did one with Alabama, Kansas State, UCLA, and Texas A&M, with Alabama and A&M playing and A&M winning it all. Delta continue to be a good dog, not a picker necessarily. Now, in mine, Sidelines, which I use, every day I have smart people like Tommy and you, Matt, on. My Final Four for the Sidelines.live bracket was Alabama, Duke, UConn, and Texas A&M. I guess I like the three-piece suit, but I had Duke playing UConn for the national championship, with UConn winning the national championship. So, Tommy, that's why you got to fill out more than one bracket.
Oh, yeah, you got to.
So in the interest of full disclosure.
Yeah, you got to. But
I can't believe I had Duke in there.
You know what? I don't blame you. They were so hot coming out of the ACC tournament. They were rolling people. They were clicking in what everybody thought Duke was supposed to be like. And so, I didn't really think that I thought it was just they were kind of peaking at a little too early, because they played more like that in the tournament, like they did in the ACC tournament. They would have done a lot better. But I don't blame you for picking them. It's hard. That's what's hard about these brackets, guys. You get these teams and these names. You're like, how do you pick against Kansas? Like a number one seed, defending champions, full of talent, guys that are going to the NBA left and right. And you're like, so you start going through the bracket. You're like, they can't beat them. They can't beat them. You just put these big name teams all the way through. And so inevitably, look, come on, it's the luckiest thing in the world. We used to run pools at Fox Sports years ago. I used to run them all the time with my goose. And the lady that won it one year, I asked her how she picked all the things she won. She said she picked them off their color of their uniforms, and she won the whole tournament. They won the whole bracket. So come on. But that's what makes it fun. It's great. It's great.
Well, it's always somebody in the back office that's doing accounts receivable, that just goes and picks and wins the whole thing. And the guys that watch every game, it's because you're too emotionally vested, isn't that
That's right?
But I love I did not have Auburn, though, believe it or not, to go past I think the second round. And I just I was concerned, but I love the Duke. I think Duke next year in the ACC, they kind of are doing a pullback, sort of a pause. I look for that league to come roaring back next year. And the SEC, guys, I don't know how good the SEC really is. Tennessee, Alabama, Arkansas get to the Sweet 16, and they really just they all fell. Nobody got to the Elite Eight, but Arkansas, for the second year in a row, knocked off a number one seed. Last year, they knocked off the team my wife calls Gorgonzola, Gonzaga. They knocked off Gonzaga as the overall number one seed. But I think the SEC schools, as far as talent, they got talent, but they're very young. Y'all notice that? Look, San Diego State, again, older than 5 NBA teams. That's saying something right there.
Really?
And we talked about it all season long. The teams that have been together for a long time are going to do well in this tournament. What level How long has this UConn group been together? Is this a lot of portal stuff, or what is it?
I've got to be honest with you. I don't know. Matt might know, but I'm not sure how much of it is. But I guarantee you there's quite a few portal guys on there. I mean, that's kind of how everybody, operates these days. But I don't know the answer to that question.
I will tell you this, Tommy. I heard a past quote from Dan Hurley after a loss in 2020 saying, enjoy it now, basically, we're coming. So I think this is a combination of some really talented recruiting classes combined with some size inside. And quite frankly, getting back to the conference discussion, Rob, the thing that I think is a little bit of a misnomer about, and listen, I'm a fan of the Big Ten, and we can't hide anywhere. We had one team in the Sweet 16, and you don't bet against Izzo. Heck, Michigan State almost beat Kansas State to go to the Elite Eight. But here's the thing: this is a tournament of matchups. If Duke doesn't play Tennessee, and they don't have that one game where they get out physical, and Olivier Nomura hits 27 points, and I probably just butchered his name, they could have easily gotten to the Final Four. You tell me that Duke couldn't have beat Alabama? They could have, because of the style. And that's why it's real interesting, because San Diego State was the one team that Alabama didn't want to see. They grinded them out, and they won a close game. And quite frankly, Florida Atlantic was up, 54-40? Tommy, 10 minutes to go? I mean, it looked like Florida Atlantic had the path to the final game. And San Diego State, a team that's not known for scoring, made a lot of threes in the second half. And you know what? I want to give compliments on that last play. People were saying, well, why didn't he call a timeout? I'm talking about the San Diego State last game shot. Because quite frankly, why do you want the defense to set up? You knew in that last timeout, when it was 71-70, there's 17 seconds to go, there's a 6 differential on the clock, that if you got the rebound, you could get up the floor, go downhill, and take a shot at the rim and win the game. That's exactly what they did. Was it a tough shot? Yeah, mid-range shot, kind of a pullback 18-footer. But you know what? It was executed greatly. And, I just think it's a tournament of matchups, guys. And tonight, I couldn't tell you how San Diego State matches up with UConn, because UConn's been so dominant. It wouldn't shock me if San Diego State finds a way to make it closer and win the game.
Yeah.
Are y'all surprised by at this point right now? I mean, Danny Hurley, look at the pedigree that he's got in terms of coaching. And Dutcher, 30 years ago, he was out there, recruiting those Fab Five guys. But man, experience. I think going forward, you're going to see more Final Fours like this.
Oh yeah, I agree with you. I mean, the transfer portal is going to cause that every year. And the thing about it, sorry, excuse me, I really think you're going to see every year, you're going to see just different teams in the Final Four, like different teams that you don't expect. You're going to see the San Diego State, you're going to see the Florida Atlantic, stuff like that. You're going to see, Creightons of the world and all the teams that the Texas A&M's, the teams that aren't normal Final Four teams. You're going to see all those teams sneaking into the Final Fours, because they're going to load up with the right, transfer portal guys, and they're going to find good chemistry. And that's really like what it was saying. It's like Matt said, it's all about matchups and stuff like that, and having your team playing with chemistry at the right time and playing together as a team, and you'll be able to gel. I mean, the days of getting a guy in as a freshman and as the coaching staff's job to develop that young man into 4 years, so by the time he's a senior, he's a contributing big-time player in the country and in your program, those are kind of long gone. I mean, I think it's basically being able to take kids as they come in, after a couple of years at a different school, and being able as a coach to gel them with the players that are already there and make that camaraderie and make that team work. But having players come in and as freshmen and developing them as individuals and the freshman class all the way through a senior year and stuff like that, this doesn't happen anymore. You're not going to see it unless they change this transfer portal, which I think they should. So.
Yeah, and I think they will, Tommy. I mean, and we know what Charles Barkley said on 60 Minutes last week. He's concerned we're going to have 25 or 30 teams and everybody else will be irrelevant. I just don't think we want that. And I think I don't know. I don't know if there's enough common sense in the NCAA to do it. But the fans are the free market. Who owns college sports? It's the fans. We're the ones that pay for it. And Matt, Tommy hit on it though. Golly, developing players. When you got a bunch of guys that have been developed and played together for several years, I think they're hard to beat right now.
Yeah, it's a great formula. And what is hard if you're not a P5 to develop players takes a little bit of time. And sometimes, you may be at a group of, you may be at that mid-major where you feel really good after 2 years where your kids have developed, and all of a sudden they leave you, or some of them, a key component leaves you. And that's what's really hard because, it takes time to develop players. And you look at San Diego State, another thing is with the COVID year when we didn't have the finals, people forget that I think, Tommy, they may have been 31-2 heading into the tournament before COVID hit. They've been building on this. They've been good for a while. And now it's just kind of come to fruition. And I can see them. Another thing you get from this, when you make a run, is all the people that are watching you play right now. You're going to get another bump in recruiting.
Of course,
without question. And that's another thing that I told some of my friends, my Iowa friends, after the game last night. I said, "Hey, Caitlin Clark's got to come back for another year because of the rules in the WNBA. If Iowa can add another piece, they're going to be a team to reckon with next year as well." And that's what happens to all these teams. And I may have said this to you, Tommy. I don't know if you were on this discussion, but my former assistant is the women's coach at FAU, Jennifer Sullivan. And I had talked to her before the tournament started. And my question was, hey, how good is FAU? They had won 31 games and they had just beaten UAB by 22 points. And I'm like, to me, UAB had a really good year. They get to the NIT finals. And she's like, Matt, they're the real deal. And you're going to see teams like this in the future make runs. It's not going to – Tommy says 100% correct.
Yeah.
Now, as far as, that hurting – and I don't know I'm not a TV executive. None of us are. But you would think that, okay, people get tired. They tell you they get tired of seeing the same teams in the college football playoff. You've had 14 teams in the first 9 years of the college football playoff out of 131 that are eligible. You have 363 eligible to make the 68-team field for March Madness. Why? We're going to a 12-team playoff in college football. That's what we love. I mean, and I think Jake Wimberly said last week on the show that we love the underdog up to about the Elite Eight. From that point on, we want the big names. Now, that's not me, but he's talking about, and he's smart, a general statement. Still, though, Americans love underdogs.
Sure they do.
How's that changing?
To me, well, I don't know. It kind of goes back for me too that not really being as a fan of a team or fan of the sport. We talk about this in the past, Rob, where when I was growing up in the ACC and living in North Carolina, I could tell you every player on every team in the ACC.
Exactly.
Where they're from, who the coach has been there from, because he's been there forever, the Terry Hollands of the world, the Bobby Cremins, the Dean Smiths, and just go down the list. Those guys were there for a long time. And the players would come in, and you'd see him as freshmen. You'd be like, oh, that kid, Ernie Myers, he's pretty good at NC State. He's a great freshman. He's going to be good for us the next couple of years. And you kind of build that relationship as a fan with those players, and you become attached to them, and you're invested more in them because you feel like they're part of your family or whatever. And I told you just beginning of the year, I have to pull the roster up at the beginning of every year to look at NC State's roster to see what these guys are, and then have to research to figure out where they came from and who they are. I don't have any idea where they are. So I guess to answer your question, I think there's always been the infatuation with the underdog because everybody wants, but at the same time, then the relationship with the favorites, I think, is from a fan base is people don't know who they are half the time. They just know it's a school. But they don't know that the player's been there for 4 years, or the players that in the past when they were there for 4 years or whatever. Then the whole nation kind of has a understanding of who that team is and who that player is. But there's no connection there because the players are just so new faces or whatever. Not all of them, but a lot of them, right? And so I just think that there's that loss of connection with that side of it.
Yeah, no, we're going to take a break, come back, talk more about it, because you've got to have the crawl going underneath the screen to keep up with people who are going into the portal. I mean, guys can't get out
like
fast
stock
enough.
Ticker.
Yeah, stock ticker is what it is. We'll be right back with more. Stand by.
Hey y'all, it's Ainsley from Hewlett & Dunn, just coming to let you know about our new collection of boots. It's going to be our dress boots. They're the Horsepower collection, and they're genuine exotic leathers and really comfortable. Comes in all different sizes and patterns, so come check them out.
Hi, I'm Eleanor Maynard, a fourth-generation residential broker with Hobbs & Realtors. Inventory is still a record low in Memphis, and the demand for more supply is continuing to spread across the Mid-South. Rates are starting to stabilize, which means the number of buyers is picking up daily. If you are interested in taking advantage of today's market, please give me, Eleanor Maynard, your Sidelines Live residential specialist, a call today, and let's discuss your needs. 901-761-1622 or directly on my mobile, 901-219-1905. That's 219-1905.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
Yeah, it's interesting. Franz Beard's on here with us right now, GatorBaitMedia.com. And Tommy, who berates the refs more? A lot of interesting commentary from people about, even after the win, Tim Mulkey will get on to the refs. Bobby Knight got on the refs a lot. But Golly, you win the national championship, you don't really need to be talking about it. But Tommy, I also think you're so right about trying to follow teams, knowing the rosters, knowing where these guys were from. With the portal, it's hard to do that, and you start following a group of guys in the tournament. But we got to do something with the portal. Guys are always going to transfer, but right now you can transfer the first time immediately. The second time, you've got to wait a year. But as a coach, it's going to be very hard, and we're going to see more of – I totally agree. We're going to see more of what we're seeing right now. And, the big teams that go get these guys that are there for a year and gone, they're not going to go far in the tournament. I think what you're going to see is they're going to look good in the regular season, but they're going to struggle against the true teams.
Yeah. They will. I mean, it's I just think the transfer portal is it's hard for me to really wrap my head around what I really feel about it, because I understand if kids need to, there's got to be some kind of protocol where kids be like, in certain situations for family reasons, medical reasons or whatever, you could transfer and go play, close to your family or do whatever, maybe here and there. But just to transfer, we talk about this, Rob, it's a whole nother can of worms. We just transfer because you're unhappy, because you're not getting to play. You're not working hard enough in practice or doing whatever. Like, you committed to that. That's about it's a responsibility. That's like take accountability. You committed to that school. You committed to that coach. You should be sticking with it. And I just think that it's teaching the young kids just a bad life lesson that you can just get up and quit anytime you want. And I think that it's extremely hard on the schools. I know it's extremely hard on the coaches. financially, you know, from a recruiting standpoint and everything, to try to continue to you know, find the new players that are out there that are in the portal, and then try to make it all mix. It's just watering down college basketball is the best way I can put it. And I just wish it would go away. I have no problem if a kid wants to transfer because the coach leaves. Like I've always said, like the way it used to be, like if I commit to Matt Dean to play for Matt Dean, and Matt Dean decides to go to UAB to coach, and I'm sitting there with a new coach, that I should have the right to transfer wherever I want. Yes, then there's no question about that. But just because it's not working out or whatever, if you want to leave, fine, but sit out a year like it used to be, you know.
Yeah.
But don't let them just go jump from. It's like the NBA. You jump from super team to super team just because they want to try to win a world championship. It's just, I hate it. I hate it.
Well, it's one of the reasons why LeBron James is not well liked or respected or as popular as someone like a Michael Jordan or Magic Johnson or Larry Bird, who stayed to be. I mean, Michael Jordan, the Bulls weren't winning like that when he got there. I mean, it's just
no. And they still won with not one. I mean, Pippen was, yes, he's arguably, you know, was a top 50 player all time or whatever, but that's it. Like there was the Horace Grants of the world were average players, the John Paxsons of the world are average players, Bill Cartwright, Matt Winnington, and they had guys in the center that were like journeymen that had been there forever, and they weren't anything, but they built the team around Jordan, and then they had one other player of Pippen. You look at some of these teams like the Celtics when they won it with Ray Allen and Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce. I mean, there's like these three all-American greatest players of all time on these teams, and they just it's terrible. Don't get me started, man. I get fired up.
Well, we all do. And Matt, I'll go to you real quick before we go to Franz. But Matt, think about that. Tommy's right. I agree. The people have always been frustrated, but in the past, you had to stick it out. In this generation of like, I want to click a button and I want to be me. It's all about me. We're not doing them any favors. Okay. And I think that's, you know, look at the problems that we have just overall in society with people that want things right away without having worked for them. Sports are supposed to teach the lessons of life. We love the underdog story. We love the people who were pushed aside, and as Waller May just said, discounted and marginalized. We'd love to see them overcome the circumstances and overcome the narratives that a lot of the so-called experts write about. Buddy Martin, GatorBaitMedia.com, Franz's partner, was on the show Saturday. He said, you know what the experts are today? There's somebody that comes in from out of town and can come to practice and has an opinion. That's the experts. So the local media can't go to practice anymore, but the guy that's from out of town can come in. They're going to tell you exactly what's going on. They have never been there before, but in 5 minutes, they can tell you. Matt?
Well, I'll go back to what Tommy said earlier before Franz came aboard was development of players. And, you know, I can only control as a head coach what I can control. That's my roster and my roster management and my roster construction. So therefore, if I know in my league I have 2 or 3 of what I used to call evil empire type programs, I'm going to try to have to build to have one of those great years. And sometimes what happens is people view it as Cinderella, but you know, you're in the journey. You knew this was coming. And I've always got motivated when people told me we couldn't do it. You know, my thing was prove them wrong. And it was basically an internal thing that we weren't going to go, you know, tell people we were good, but we were going to show people we were good. And we had a saying, respect everyone, fear no one. And the game is played for 40 minutes, and you got to play from tip to buzzer. And so I always looked at it as a challenge. And now with the portal, yeah, Tommy, I don't like it either. But as a coach, I'm going to have to figure out how to find a way to live in it. I'll tell you that much.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Franz, jump in here. You know, you're listening to this. Guys have always had reasons to leave. But in the past, guys like, Tommy Kane was a manager who played with the team at NC State. When his time came, look what it did. And he's able to remember that in every tough moment he faces in life and everything he does because he didn't quit. Franz, I know you got something to say on this, and you and Buddy are 2 of the smartest people that I know. And you are one of the most interesting people in the world, along with Frank Duffy.
Well, here's the first thing I would do. I think that I like the portal to an extent, but here's where I draw the line. Nobody can transfer after their freshman year. You can't have, if after your freshman year, you got too many kids who just say, well, gee, I didn't play as a freshman, so they jump ship. Got to stay your first year. Second thing, can't transfer unless you are in good academic standing. And by that, I mean, you better have at least a 2.5. I think you can set a standard there. 2.5 GPA. That's what is that? A C plus average? Okay. I think that you can, I agree that if your parents are sick and you need to be home or whatever like that, fine, do it. And that can happen at any time. But eliminate these waivers that they're giving for a kid that's transferred once and all of a sudden he wants to transfer a second time. And now you got kids that are on their third and fourth team already because the NCAA gives these waivers. Okay, make it a rule. Okay, if you're transfer, fine. You've done you've done your thing. However, if you decide to transfer again, no waivers, none at all, but you are going to sit for a full year. And if that means that all of a sudden now I'm out of eligibility because I have to sit that year, well, gee, I guess that means I got to stay where I am. So you can put parameters on it that don't really that don't change the fact that you can transfer, but they just make it so that you've got to. If I'm an athlete, I have to do the best that I can where I am, and having been in good academic standing tells everybody that I am committed to where I am, and I've done the best I can, but I need to go somewhere. Okay, fine. But this thing now where you got kids, I would say probably about 35 to 40% of the kids who are transferring right now are in bad academic standing. One of the biggest reasons they're transferring is they think school's too hard where they are. So they're going to go someplace where they think school is easier. That's a bad idea to be able to just transfer at will because you can't make it academically. Stick it out. There's tutors available. I don't know of a single Division I school that doesn't have a rather good tutoring program. Here at the University of Florida, if you're flunking out, by golly, it's because you are lazy. That's it, just it, because they've got all the help in the world. They have an academic center that is second to none. Yeah. And my gosh, that I also saw something. Kids are using this artificial intelligence stuff. They can get it. You can say, okay, write a term paper, and I can go there and just pick the subject, and artificial intelligence will all but write the paper for me. All I got to do is fill in a couple blanks along the way. So, I'm just appalled at how easy it is. And yet at the same time, I believe that kids should have the right to transfer. Now, if I'm a coach, here's the thing I got to do. I got to find kids that, that fit my standards. If you are not in good academic standing, I don't want you. If you've had any kind of a trouble in the past, I don't want you. And I think we have too many coaches who are willing to just take that kid who they say, okay, he'll help me. And he's a pain in the ass to deal with. And I might be having to bail him out of jail tomorrow morning. Yeah. But, I think you've got to do the best you can to get a roster that fits what you want to do. I was talking with Kim Mulkey and I go back 43 years. Okay. I was a sports editor in Hammond, Louisiana when she was in high school. 4 years, 4 state championships, I think she had 6 AAU national championships. She hit the Grand Slam home run that won the state Little League championship playing for the boys, etc. Has a history of winning championships. I know this. She took in a bunch of transfers this year. But one of the things she told me was every single one she took in this year, she made sure that if they were not in good academic standing, they weren't coming. If they'd had even a measure of trouble in the past, they weren't coming. And this is the thing you got to do. If you're a coach, you've got to find that kid that rises to your standard and you don't drop to theirs. And we got too many coaches out there that are taking in transfers and they're dropping the standards to fit the kids. And if the coaches will do their part, and by that I mean, okay, I'm setting a standard up here, and if that kid doesn't get there, you ain't coming here. If coaches would do that universally, you would find the transfer portal, the number of kids going out of the transfer portal would drop dramatically.
Yeah, Matt and Tommy, look, Matt, I know you've got to go, and Tommy, hang on with us as long as you can. But Matt, I like what he just said. And, in the investment world, if you go buy a CD and you pull it out early, you pay 3 months interest penalty, okay? In a lot of investments, you have surrender charges that decline each year. There's got to be some pain in transfer. Tommy's right, Franz, all of you. And by the way, I love the academic part of it. You've got to be in good academic standing because, Tommy, you're a student athlete. And Matt, I mean, what if you're not doing the schoolwork? We've gotten to where we've got a lot of people in charge who are just feeling sorry for people, and you are doing them no service at all in a good way. You're doing them a disservice to just, okay, that's fine, because they don't want to listen to you scream, Matt. I know you got to go.
Yeah, look, it's hard enough to get most, I'm not saying all, a lot of student athletes to even go to class anyway, right? It always has been, no matter what sport you're talking about. And I think now, when you talk about NIL deals, everything else, all this other incentive and all the outside forces that are pulling you saying, why would I have to go to school? I mean, that kind of thing. I just makes it harder and harder to be focused on trying to class and get education. Not saying all of them, but a decent amount of them, right? And so, then you look at the coach's side of it all and the competitive side from as a coach's standpoint. And, when the kids come in and come visit the school, coming in out of a transfer portal or whatever, freshmen, and they talk to the other players like, hey, man, what's it like here going to school, whatever, like, oh, the coach, man, we got to go to class every day. We got to learn. We got to study. We got to make good grades. We got to do this or this or whatever. We don't get in. There's a chance that some of those kids might not want to come play for that school, and they're going to lose some athletes, and then it comes down to just your ethics and morals as a coach. Do you want to continue to raise young men that are going to be successful in life and have a good work ethic, or do you want to win? And I think that's where the line gets really blurred when it comes to kids going to class. So
but Tommy, you're right, and both of you all about you've got to have some standard if you're going to transfer. If you're not in good academic standing, hell, you can't transfer to. If you want to go to a school that you think academically is better than where you are, you're certainly not going to be able to transfer as just a regular student unless you are in really good academic standing. If you don't meet their standard, they can't let you in. I mean, if we start lowering the standards for medical school, do you want the person that is not qualified to be your surgeon? I mean, good grief, man. You know what? Responsibility, authority, accountability. Every time we get away from it, we get burned to a crisp, Tommy. Tommy, look, stay with us if you can. Love for you too. And Franz, and we're going to come back after this break because there's so much going on in the college world. And, golly, the way Kim Mulkey, Franz, the way those players at LSU were acting after the game with Iowa, putting their fingers up in the faces. Look, I get excited when you win and all, but that part, I don't know what was going on the court, but it's a lot of people, I tell you one thing, it's getting people talking about women's basketball. So if that was the point, they're doing it. But we're going to be back with two smart guys and me right after this.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Tommy Kane, Franz Beard. And Franz, you're right about that, man. And you got to be in good academic standing. Why is that not being brought up with the portal? Going, yeah, transfer, but you got to be in good. But it takes both parties. The receiving school has got to make a stance on that. It seems like people are afraid of hurting people's feelings. Frankly, I don't give a damn about your feelings. Okay? If you work for me, you're going to produce. And if you don't produce, I'll replace you. That's the way that, you know what? You are not preparing these kids for the real world. If they think they can shout, okay, Tommy, I know you got to go. Tell people, Tommy, real quick before you go, how people can follow you. You've got a great production company and all, but I love what you're saying about the portal, Tommy and Franz. I think we got somewhere today. We're going to call it the Kane, Beard, Dean law. But Tommy, tell people how they can follow you because you're making a lot of sense.
Rob, it's always a pleasure to get on and talk with you guys, especially about college hoops. It's definitely my passion. But yeah, you can follow me at Tommy Kane-Talent on Instagram, and then my production company's Pack 30 Productions, PACK 30 Productions, based out of Atlanta, Georgia. Emmy award-winning commercials, corporate videos, you name it, we do it. So if you guys never had anybody out there ever need for that, look us up, Pack 30 Productions.
Pack 30 Productions. And Tommy, what did you say the other day? You auditioned for how many movie roles and whatever like that? How many times you told no? You lost count?
We don't even get told no, Rob. That's the thing. You audition for movie roles or TV shows or whatever, and they don't call you back and say no. You just don't hear anything. So you basically, as an actor and a host and TV host, you basically just know that you submit and then you let it go. And you just go on and move on to the next thing. And hopefully you'll get an email someday with your agent saying you booked it or not. But, that's part of life, and it's where you just keep working. But it's a lot of what people don't see that go on behind the scenes of these actors and people that do television work. You don't see all the auditions and all the work that goes on behind it. So,
yeah, great take. Into your sports memory, you miss a shot, you take the next one.
That's right, buddy. You got it, man. The next one's always going in, right?
That's right.
All right, y'all have a good rest of your day. Enjoy the game tonight.
All right, we will talk to you next week. Appreciate it. That is Tommy Kane over in Atlanta, one of my favorite people. And friends, what I love about it is Tommy was just saying he grew up in Wilmington, North Carolina. Was a walk-on basketball player at NC State, was a manager. And in 93, the day before they played Duke, and that was the game where Jim Valvano walked out to midcourt and gave a very impassioned speech. He was very sick at the time. And, Tommy's a manager, and Friday after practice, the coach, Les Robinson, threw him that jersey and said, Tommy, you're playing tomorrow. And he said, what? He goes, we're down a man. You got to be ready. And he was ready when his moment came. Friends, I love it. Hold these people accountable. This is silly of just allowing people, if you've got whatever it is, a business, a fraternity, you have a standard. If you rush people through just to make them feel, included as part of it, you're screwing them long term. You're not doing them any kind of a good service. Hard work works. Frankly, I don't give a you-know-what if I hurt your feelings. If you work for me, if you're one of my kids, I'm not your friend. I'm here to teach you how to fight and survive and to get through life. I listen to a lot of great motivation tapes and speakers. People who work a 40-hour week are working just to survive. People that work 60, 70, 80 hours a week are working for success, for generational wealth, to make the difference. We are setting these student athletes. You're wrong to allow them to transfer without any pain, because they're going to think, wait till they get married and have 3 or 4 kids and bills to pay, and things don't go their way. They just going to leave home.
Yeah. Well, that's what we've got with no fault divorce. It used to be that if you wanted a divorce, you filed your papers and you still had to wait a year. I know a lot of people. Now, Tommy Kane's from Wilmington, and I was with the Star News there in Wilmington. My late father lived and died there. But I know this, that if you're not willing to make some sort of a commitment, then I don't want you with me. Now I understand, okay, at some point in time, you get to a point where there needs to be a divorce, there needs to be a separation, but you got to have a year, like I said, make it so that your freshman year, you aren't going anywhere. Now, after your sophomore year, if you decide you're going to transfer, fine. Then that's another story altogether. But we've got kids now. Look at the portal and look at the number of kids who are on campus for football for one semester. And at the end of the first semester, they're gone. Yeah. Or kids that are coming in and they're early enrollees and they're transferring after spring practice they early enrolled for. They skip, here's something I would really like to see too. I'd like to see it so that you cannot early enroll. You got to finish up your high school year. Now, at the end of your junior year, if you are able to graduate after your junior year, fine. But I think we've got so many situations out there now where kids are being given grades to graduate high school so they can early enroll in college. I know that for a fact, that you've got kids that are just being given their grades and they're not having to earn it. And I look at what they're missing out on by not finishing high school with the people they've been going to school with for years. I know, in my particular case, my senior year in high school is something I will always remember. That last semester from January, February, March, April, and May, those 5 months, I will never, ever forget. A lot of wonderful things. There was a bond between us at our high school. We would, if they told us, okay, you can go on with life, but you can sign up and keep going to school every day, at Janesville High School, probably half of us would have signed up for it because we loved our school that much. And we loved the camaraderie we had in the student body. And kids miss out on this. They miss out on proms. They miss out, I know this sounds silly.
No, it doesn't. It makes sense.
But, I think you get a more mature kid who has gone through his entire year of high school. I think in the long haul, you end up with a more mature kid. Now, I know that people are going to wave statistics at me and say that early enrollees end up doing so much better because they learn everything they need to learn. They get a semester up on it. I'm sorry, but maybe that's true about the sport they're playing, but I guarantee you it's not so true about about them as people. Now, I will give basketball credit for one thing. Because of the way the basketball is played, you don't see kids skipping their senior year or, the last
Early enrollees. Yeah.
and early enrolling. They're just going on and finishing that year. And I think I'd like to see that happen in football as well. There are, like I said, we don't need, you're not going to eliminate the transfer portal. Forget that. It isn't going to happen. But what you can do is you can tweak it so that, as you said, there's going to be a little pain involved here. There's going to be some commitment. That's what I want to see involved here. And like if you make a kid go through his freshman year, and okay, that means you got a sophomore year. Now, after your sophomore year in football, if you didn't know you need to transfer out, that, okay, I signed on as a quarterback, and now all of a sudden they brought in 4 more, and I was the number 3 quarterback in the room, and now all of a sudden they're bringing in 2 more who are early enrollee. And I am now the number 5 guy. I'm now one of 5 guys in the room, and I'm looking at the future, and I'm seeing them coddle 2 of the new guys that come in there and the guy that they've got as the starter who's returning. I think I need to be able to find a new place to go, but I better have my act in order. And and it's kind of like this, Rob, when somebody comes to, if I come to you looking for a job, I better have a good resume, number one, and I better have my head on straight, because in your particular position, in your particular profession, we're handling people's money, other people's money.
Yeah.
And there's a penalty if we screw up, and it is a severe penalty. We could wind up in jail, for example.
Yeah.
So I think that you got to, if I'm coming to you for an interview, you got to know I got some character. You got to know I have responsibility. You got to know that I'm somebody you can trust. I think that the way the transfer portal is going now, you got kids who are just coming in there, and coaches are taking them because they say, oh, he averaged 16 points a game. And they don't look at the fact that he hardly ever went to class, that he disrespected his teammates, that he was just a total jerk all the way around. Was that somebody I want to come work for me? No, it wouldn't be. And in the real world, but we got coaches who, I guess because of the amount of money they're being paid or whatever like that, feel the pressure. I got to take anybody, and that kid averaged 16 points a game, so I don't care if he was a screw up off the court.
Yeah. Well, they don't make good teammates. And in the business world, I mean, which is life, everything is life when you're alive, but you're not doing anybody a favor, whisking them along and getting them out of every jam they go through when they're growing up. They get in trouble, let them feel the pain. The earlier they feel the pain, the more time they have to get it right. But you can't be 30 years old doing stuff that you did when you were 15. The consequences can be catastrophic, especially if you're married and you've got 3 or 4 kids. If you watch TV commercials, they make you think nobody has kids. They show the people living in the $5 or $10 million house, looks like in Carmel, California, driving 2 $80,000 vehicles with no kids in the picture. But reality is, you're going to end up, most of you, married with 3 or 4 kids, 5 kids, and the choices that you make are going to have consequences. And sports are supposed to teach the lessons of life. I mean, you look at the number of people who work their tails off in college. walk-ons that rose through the ranks, or you were third team on the depth chart, and you refused to let that be your story. Just because you're third team on the depth chart doesn't mean you're last the rest of your life. That's what we love, but you got to have accountability. So the portal, you put teeth in there. Quit making it so easy. What we've got are a bunch of coddlers at the NCAA, a bunch of weak-kneed cowards. We've got a bunch of men that get pedicures, and they lack testosterone. And we got to get people in charge that are not afraid to make decisions. If they hurt people's feelings, so be it. That's just life. That's how it goes. But I think you're going to see tonight this San Diego State team, a bunch of guys that have been together a long time. As we talked to earlier, they're older than 5 NBA teams, Franz.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of hard to believe, but if you think, look, John Calipari is a hell of a coach. He's a charismatic personality. Hell, I don't know him, but bringing in a bunch of one-and-dones, and the SEC rosters are getting more and more talented. But everybody thought the SEC or the Big 12 were the best leagues in America. Well, the SEC got 3 teams to the Sweet 16, got 8 overall. Big 12, they did well. But you look at the teams that have been together, that are mature, experience and age, maturity and all matter, Franz. And you're seeing it right now.
That's what I tell girls, Rob. When you get tired of youth and exuberance, try cunning, guile, and experience.
Yep.
I understand exactly what you're saying, and I like it that the teams, 3 of the teams at least, we're talking about San Diego State, UConn, and Florida Atlantic, were teams that pretty much stuck together. Now, I think every one of them may have had 1 or 2 transfers that came in. Even Miami, Jim Larinaga, look what he's done there.
Yeah.
But all these teams were pretty much built from the ground up and stayed there from the ground up. You can win through the portal, okay? Kim Mulkey proved that you can win through the portal. But next year, she signed a great freshman class and so forth like that. And the ones who have used up their eligibility are going to be replaced by a freshman. So she's going to have to do a whole bunch of coaching next year. But this is what I think the portal does for you. The portal allows you, if I've got a deficiency, that I can go out there and find that hole. For example, Billy Napier, I'll use him as a perfect example. Billy Napier inherited a roster that probably a lot of these kids don't fit what he wanted to do. Now, he had some attrition last year, but he stuck with the guys that he let these kids stay and graduate. I don't.
Franz, hold those thoughts. We're going to go to a break, but because Wes Moore is coming on from Little Rock, ESPN 103.7 The Buzz. But you watch the teams that are mature, they can handle a lot more. We're going to be right back with Wes and Franz.
Hi, I'm Eleanor Maynard, a 4th-generation residential broker with Hobbs & Realtors. Inventory is still a record low in Memphis, and the demand for more supply is continuing to spread across the Mid-South. Rates are starting to stabilize, which means the number of buyers is picking up daily. If you are interested in taking advantage of today's market, please give me, Eleanor Maynard, your Sidelines Live residential specialist, a call today, and let's discuss your needs. 901-761-1622 or directly on my mobile, 901-219-1905. That's 219-1905.
All right, Rob Browne back with Wess Moore and Franz Beard, and having a great discussion about basketball maturity and keeping a team together. And Wess, I just say this, and those of you that are listening, Wess is in Little Rock, ESPN 103.7, The Buzz, and Friday afternoon was a wild afternoon weather-wise, and I was over in Memphis in meetings basically from 12:15 till right after 5. And I could see the tornado stuff. People were blowing up the phone about Little Rock, and then it hit wind. And here in Parkin, over here at the farm, we were, spared. But let's talk about, you were not. Now you were already off the air, but what's going on in Little Rock now?
Yeah, Friday afternoon I left the radio station and had gone to the TV station. And was, just kind of planning my Friday 5:30, 6:30, 9 o'clock sportscast, and started watching the severe weather coverage. And I noticed the storm that left Hot Springs was coming straight for West Little Rock. And I just, that's where I live. That's where my daughter was, and with some friends, and they were out of school already. And the school is out in West Little Rock. So I started, calling to my daughter and my friend's house to make sure they were watching the weather and they were being weather aware. And thankfully they were, and they weren't hit, but just kept watching it. And, it was just strange. The meteorologists were talking about seeing the debris cloud and where it was located. And, I know those streets like the back of my hand. And then when they pop up the camera, sky cam, and off the top of the building, and you can see it then, and you see it crossing the Arkansas River and going into North Little Rock, and it just really hits home. And you have no idea there for a while how bad it was, because you're not seeing anything or hearing anything right away, and so you're like, well, maybe it's not actually touching down. It's just a funnel cloud that hasn't hit the ground yet. And it's just a radar indicated tornado that isn't doing any damage. And then the damage reports start coming in, and it's bad. And, we didn't have enough coverage in our newsroom. And so they came to me and was like, Wes, can you go to a certain part of Little Rock, the Cantrell area? And I'm like, yeah, sure. I'll do whatever. I'm not going to have a sportscast obviously today.
Yeah.
And so I went out to Highway 10, Cantrell. It's one of the main roads that runs east and west in Little Rock, and shut down. And there's this beautiful, it's called Pulaski County Title Company. It's, where you go when you're buying a house, you get your title done. And it's 3-story build glass. And I got there, and it was just blown out. One of the guys I interviewed said it best. It looks like a bomb went off. And
yeah,
he was filming it, the tornado, as it came across Highway 10, and he saw it, and it hit home to him that, whoa, this is a big tornado. When you start seeing debris flying through the air, at first it just looks like a big storm, and a big rain cloud coming your way. It was so big, and then you see the debris flying through the air, and he ran and sought cover, and it's just crazy. 30 seconds later, it's over, and you walk out, and your entire neighborhood, your world is changed.
Yeah.
There's so many videos I've seen from people, inside their home, and they're taking the video, and then 20 seconds, it's over, and you walk outside, and what used to be a nice, all these trees and forest and green grass, it's gone. It looks like I just said, a bomb went off, and something exploded, and what was there was gone.
Yeah, and we were over in Wynn Saturday and Sunday. A bunch of us took a bunch of food over there, and just to see what we could do to help. And we got a lot of people listening to the show that have been sending money for us to use to go buy food and all. And that's what we've been doing. And Wynn got hit hard on the south side of town. I mean, it's unrecognizable in a lot of those areas, and you'll see a house in the middle of the street, not even a scratch on it, and the house next door to it blown down to the foundation. But yeah, it was a wild day, and it happened. And now, there's this time of year, this is Tornado Alley here. But yeah, it was just incredible. And having been a TV reporter myself, I remember, doesn't matter whether you're sports or whatever, when there's a big weather event, all hands on deck, man. It shows your true versatility, Wes. And look, what about now? I got to ask you about tonight, the national championship. And we lost Wess there, but I was going to say, bottom line, Franz, and Wess will be back with us here in just a moment, hopefully. This national championship game, you've got and Wess. Okay, Wess. Diego State and UConn. I couldn't believe it. My brackets were so awful, but I did one for Sidelines for the show with Alabama, Duke, A&M, and UConn, and I had Duke and UConn playing, with UConn winning the national championship. This has been, to me, an exciting Final Four because it's been just three teams that have never been there before. But what do you think is going to happen tonight? UConn, San Diego State, which, by the way, is older than 5 NBA teams.
And I'll apologize. I'm going through the area right now, and so there's hardly any cell service, and that's what's happening. I'm dropping in and out because I drive this area every day down Cantrell Road to the radio station, and you know what? Let me see if I can split that. Can y'all see me now?
Yeah. Oh yeah, there you are. Yeah.
I'm gonna turn my camera.
Wow.
And this is the Pulaski County title that I was just telling you about. Is right there.
Good gosh.
We're going through that red light. There are still no electricity, so red lights aren't working. There's a look at the title.
Wow.
And all of these. This is where it crossed Highway 10 right here. That purple cow used to be a big favorite for kids. This apartment complex is pretty much destroyed. And then, with typical tornado, that's it. That's the end of the damage. It crossed over right there, and everything else is fine. This brew just opened the day before the tornado, and it was spared. But anyway, we're back, and just everything's normal now in this part. But anyway, to the Final Four. Hopefully my reception will stay, because there's another area down here where we may not have any reception. But anyway, the Final Four, it's UConn. Guys, I've been lucky enough. Arkansas played both of these teams. They beat San Diego State in Hawaii at the Maui Classic in overtime. Great game. One of the best games for Arkansas this year. And then, of course, they played UConn in the tournament. UConn's by far the best team. And really, that's been the best team I've seen this year. I was telling anybody who would listen Saturday to take UConn, give the points, and and I was telling them to go ahead and slide it up to 10.5, and you could get UConn plus 170 out to win by 10.5. That's how confident I was that they were going to win the semifinals by double digits. And I see the same thing. I think UConn is a dominant team, and they're going to beat San Diego State. And I wouldn't be surprised if it's by double digits tonight. That's how good they are. Anything can happen in one game. We saw that with LSU women last night. This is LSU is a bad 3-point shooting team. That was their Achilles heel all season long. And last night they were 11 of 17. You pick what a great night to have a great night, right? Without that, they don't win that game. But I didn't think they'd win because they can't shoot from outside. Well, they proved me wrong, at least for one night, going 11 for 17. So, anything can happen. San Diego State can have one of those Villanova-type nights when they're red hot and they find a way to win it. But I think UConn will win this game. And their defense is so good that it makes it hard for a team to have a special night shooting of like 11 for 17. And I told you this last week. Arkansas started off playing well. They were hitting some very difficult shots. They were hitting some threes against UConn. And I was like, okay, well, they're kind of hanging in there. They're playing well. Yeah. They're shooting well. They were down 7. And I was like, oh, this isn't going to be good. That's not good. If Arkansas is playing well offensively and they're still down 7, and then, they came down to earth, the next thing you know, they're down 27 points. That's what UConn does to you. And I expect UConn to do that tonight.
Yeah. Franz, like what he's saying, UConn, it happens so fast, your head's spinning.
Well, they came to Gainesville and absolutely ripped Florida a new one. And here's the thing that's so interesting about him. They got Sonogo, who's 6'9" and 260, and he plays below the rim, but he's such a wide body that he's going to get his rebounds and he's going to get his points inside. He just puts that big butt out there and dares you to try to get around him. And then they come off the bench with Klingon. And this is where, you look at at their top 5 guys can play, but then they come off the bench with a guy like Klingon, who is a game alterer because he's 7'2", and nobody's got anybody 7'2" that can handle him. Here's what I love about UConn. They shoot threes, yes, but they're not a team that just runs 4 guys running circles on the perimeter and 1 big guy. They run the same offense that Danny Hurley's dad started running back in the 70s at St. Anthony's. I asked him that game, I said, you know what? I thought I was looking at St. Anthony's. And he said, we are St. Anthony's. Same old, and it still works.
Yeah. Wes, I mean, like you're saying, it's amazing that the timelessness of good basketball coaching.
That offense was fun to watch. Once you realized that Arkansas wasn't going to win and you accepted the fact, Arkansas is a good defensive team. Devo Davis, he gets after you. That's how they got where they were, by playing good defense, and they couldn't stop UConn. That screen game, it was tremendous. It was fun to watch just how effective they were running off, sometimes not even double screens, but triple screens, getting guys open and then cutting to the basket and getting easy shots. And Arkansas defensively just couldn't stay with them because of the screens getting knocked off of the play. And I marveled at that because at times Arkansas's offense it's the NBA these days. It's basically a penetration type offense. It's a one-on-one, a lot of one-on-ones, and then some pick and rolls. But that's about it. So to me, it was kind of cool to watch an old school offense, if you want to call it old school, but that's kind of the way I grew up playing, where you're setting screens for each other and running off of screens, and UConn was very efficient at doing that.
Yeah, Wes, real quick before we go, we got a couple of minutes left. Spring practice underway. Hogs baseball team is rolling, and the last part of basketball will be over tonight. And we'll get into it again more next week. But spring practice overall, are you pleased with the progress? And you've got some new coaches like Marcus Woodson and Travis Williams up there that are from the deep South, and recruiting is really picking up, I think.
Yeah, they had a huge scrimmage Saturday, but unfortunately it was closed. And we don't know. And because we haven't had any interviews with the coaching staff, our next media availability is Tuesday. So I really can't tell you much about football because so much of it's been closed. I can tell you they're happy with the defensive backs. They feel like they're building some depth at the corner position and safety position. And they're tinkering with the offensive line every single day. Coach Pittman says he doesn't want the same starters in consecutive days. He wants to change it up with every position. Somebody new needs to be starting so that they are getting a taste of what it's like to run on the first team, or just to see how they respond going up against the other guys on the first team. If you're on the first team offensive line, what do you look like on the first team against the first team defensive line? So I'll know a little bit more after Tuesday when we talk to Coach Pittman. Baseball team, man, they're rolling. That was a big series win over Alabama. Arkansas and LSU tied for first in the SEC West. Arkansas is finding some relief pitching, and that's going to be the key because that's what happened with this team. They had 3 guys go down with season-ending injuries in the bullpen, and so they're trying to figure out their pitching staff. And it looks like they're finding some guys. Some young guys are stepping up, and they were able to take 2 out of 3 from Alabama. And they're a very good hitting team. They're fun to watch. Both LSU and Arkansas can knock the cover off the ball.
Yeah, they can. And I mean, look at I know Auburn went down to Florida and got 1. They were up 8-3 yesterday and ended up giving up 16, 17 points in that game. This league, Ole Miss, they've got one conference win. Mississippi State has, I think, one conference win. Let me check the standings just to verify that. They've got State has one. Yeah, State and Ole Miss are both 1-8. Those are your previous two national champions. Wes, is there another league in the country this year as competitive as the SEC in baseball?
No, and there never is. I mean, the SEC from top to bottom is the best in baseball, and it's been that way for years, and it's going to continue to be that way because of the support. Yeah, I mean, you look at the weekend numbers for these series, the number of fans that go to these games, it's crazy. Arkansas had a beautiful weekend weather after, the tornado Friday, and they had 10, 11,000 people at every single game. Heck, there are Major League Baseball teams that don't get 10 or 11,000 sometimes in the middle of the season.
Yeah.
But that's happening at LSU. It's happening at Mississippi State, Ole Miss, all across the SEC. Fans love college baseball in the SEC.
They really do. And, unfortunately, we run out of time, but you've got a great show there in Little Rock, and I know there'll be a lot of people wanting to find out how they can help, and just like we're doing to try to help people and win. And you'll be talking about that as well. But tell people how they can follow you, keep up with you. And we always love having you on, and look forward next week talking more football and baseball because it never stops in the South.
No, go follow us on Twitter or follow me on Twitter. It's Wess_more, 2 S's in Wess and 2 O's and more. We're on the air here in about 10 minutes on The Buzz, 103.7 The Buzz. You can go to 1037thebuzz.com or download the app. I was talking to somebody at Oakland this past weekend. They were down in Texas visiting, and he was like, man, I wish I could hear you every day. And I said, you can. All you got to do is download the app. And we went to his app store, downloaded the app right there. And now he's going to be listening on his app today.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, you can do it. And it's like Franz, I have you and Buddy on the Buddy Martin show, the same thing. But love it. Great talk. Like I say, tonight, I've got UConn in one of my brackets, believe it or not, to win it, Wes. And so we'll see what happens. But be careful out there. And folks, if you're listening on the Sidelines.live website, we will post information on how to help people in Arkansas. We're going to do that for sure. Franz, thank you so much. All of our guests, have a great one. We'll see you tomorrow. We're out of here.